I'm Jeanette Keynes from Jewelry Arts Inc. In this video, I'm going to show you how to solder gold granules to a silver bracelet. So you see, we have this beautiful sterling silver bracelet, and Denise wanted to put these gold granules on top. So we're going to do 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. So where we are so far is I naughtily went ahead and soldered one of them on. I also put a little bit of paste flux where the other ones are going to go, so that I don't have to stop in between each one of these and pickle, because like, who wants to do that if they don't have to? Sometimes I forget and I don't do that, in which case I do have to pickle in between each time. But now I'm going to go ahead and set up the next one, because when you're soldering silver to gold, you always have to use silver solder. You have to use the silver solder because it's a lower melting point than the gold does. So basically, whatever metals you're combining, you have to use the solder of the one that melts at a lower temperature, okay? So, i.e. silver solder. Now, because we're only doing these granules and then we're shaping it and then like that's it, no more soldering, we're just gonna use medium solder for all of them because medium's very cooperative. It melts at a relatively low temperature, you know. So I got my cute little squares right here. I'm just gonna take one, dip it in the paste flux, put it in a little spot there. I call this basically the sandwich method because you have like thing, solder, other thing. The solder is the filling. Everything I do comes back to food, one way or the other, you know? I'm gonna dip this in a tiny bit of paste flux and put it right on there. Now this is really not that hard to do. The only thing that's fussy is when you go to dry this off, the flux is gonna pop and the little granule is gonna roll and whatever. And you may have to put it back in place multiple times because it just likes to do that. Right. That's why I always have my tweezers right in my hand, ready to give it a poke, okay?
So you put the gold, the granule in solder to make it more comfortable with the...
Basically, that's the only place I want to join.
Okay.
Is right between the granule and the back sheet. I don't want that solder to really like flow up on my granule and mess up my nice gold. You know, I don't want it to spread to the sides because then we'd have to clean it up and boo, nobody wants to do that. So that's why this method works really well, because literally it just melts right where we want it to be, and then there's no cleanup, which you know is my goal in life at all times. Zero cleanup. Okay? Now this silver right here, this is not actually all that thick. It was one of those sort of low dome and we hammered it. If this were really big and thick, I'd probably go for a 1 tip, the big one, but this is actually not so big, so I'm using a 0. Okay, so I'm gonna dry it. I'm gonna poke it back in place if it's naughty. That's why I always have my tweezers ready to deploy. Okay, so then I'm focusing my heat on the silver bracelet. And you see that? Look at that. The solder flows, 0 cleanup. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna do one more just to demonstrate it. Hey Lori, how are you? And then I'll let you do the other side, okay? So, dip, place, get a granule. I usually want the granule to be at least a little bit wet so it wants to stick there since this is warm. But it always doesn't want to stick that much. Sometimes it just rolls right off like a little stinker. Okay? And like, that's the great thing about silver solder. Like, it'll kind of just, you can use the same one because even if this one reflows a tiny bit, it's not really going to go anywhere. And it's far enough away that like basically we don't have to worry, which is why we're not doing like starting at the higher and working our way down. The medium solder is pretty cooperative. Okay. And then I just concentrate the heat on the silver shank or bracelet, as the case may be. There you go. That's
Beautiful.
it.
Thank
Okay,
you.
no
Yeah.
problem. So you can go and do the other ones. You just have to add fresh paste flux each time.
Right.
Because it doesn't matter if this stuff gets oxidized, as long as the spot where we're working is clean.
Okay.
That's all we care about. Okay?
Yes, lovely. Thank you.
You're welcome.